do you kind of know, just looking at a junior, that this guy has the potential to be an elite player?
When their racket touches the ball, it doesn't mean that it's going to the place it's supposed to go. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just the touch. When the racket touches the ball, it touches so clean. You can't explain it. It's like if you watch 10 kids and you see one of them, because you have trained your eye, so to speak, right, to look at certain differences. You can see, yes, you can say this person should definitely be playing tennis. So that, yes, in the way of the cleanness of how they touch the ball on their racket will let you know that they have a gift beyond normal.
Hafa Guam and beyond. So I am here with Kishan Wicks. He started his tennis career as a national player for Sri Lanka, representing in the Davis Cup and Asia Games. He even played in the NCAA Division I tennis for the University of Nevada, Reno.
That's correct.
He's made accomplishments like making the Big West All-Star team and also having the number 6 all-time singles wins for the university. He transitioned to coaching career and became head of director of Spring Valley Lake and Silver Lake Tennis Center. In that process, he's helped 7 players on the ATP Tour, 3 players on the WTA Tour, and 10 ITA College All-Americans. He's helped 52 players obtain college scholarships, and he's made it out to Guam as the national tennis coach here, and currently he's the independent coach here on the island. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks for making it here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So, this is just 40, 50 years of greatness, tennis greatness. And, I think we're lucky to have you on Guam and teaching all the students and developing. But can you give me a little bit more detail on, your journey from a competitive tennis player to, transition to the coach? Because I know I missed a lot of details, and that was a very abbreviated version of your career.
Yes, I mean, it's like anything. I also come from a small island, bigger than Guam, but it's an island, right? And it's not as big as the U.S. or any of the European countries. So it was not easy for me to leave the country. I mean, I had to be very good and at the same time get a lot of help.
Yeah.
Money was not like at the U.S. level, so to speak. So I was fortunate to have a few good sponsors, who after I won junior nationals, I went on what we call not at the highest level of the pro tournaments, but I started off by playing all the opens and all the ranking tournaments in England and India and Bangkok.
Were these local sponsors?
They were local sponsors, of course, people my father knew and, people who wanted to support me. And so I was kind of fortunate to be able to travel and play tournaments. And I did that for about a year and a half to 2 years. And I remember I was 16 when I started that off. I was very, very young.
Yeah.
I was not a mature professional tennis player, like in my 20s trying out the tour, right? So it was a grind. I was not really making the money at that time. It was very hard to make money to sustain yourself. So I had to make a decision to say, okay, I'm 18 plus. What do I do? Do I just try to keep playing? And then, of course, my father made that decision for me. He said, no, you're going to college in America because, some coach reached out to him in New Mexico for my first 2 years. And he said, they're giving you a full scholarship. Go get your education. Hey, you couldn't beat Jimmy Connors, you couldn't beat Borg, you couldn't beat McEnroe. You're not at that level. So, I cannot keep giving you that opportunity because, the money is not there.
Yeah.
So it was more of a strategic decision to come to the U.S. To say, okay, I'll come here, try to perform well, and then get my education, and then see if I can do something. But, things didn't work out exactly as planned, as usual. So when I got to the States, I had a very good collegiate tennis career. but I was not a U.S.-born athlete. I was a foreigner playing in the U.S. system.
Yeah.
So basically, most players, who come from like Sweden or Germany or whatever, they'll go, they come and play, they'll dominate tennis, and they'll go back to their country, and then they'll get their sponsorships and everything back from those countries, and then they'll go on the tour. I just couldn't do it because in 1984, when I finished, I just was looking around. I mean, I'm alone in the U.S., no help, and we had a big civil war going on in our country.
Yeah.
So, and then communication was not like today, on WhatsApp and stuff like that. It's, it's very easy to make a video call and talk to your parents or whoever, and, YouTube, all of these things were, not there, Facebook. So I had to, write letters, to to my dad. And he was like, well, if you want to come back, you can come back and get a job. And try to play tennis again here in Sri Lanka. So I said, no, I'll try to, hey, I'm in America already. I'll try to stay in America, and I'll give up my professional tennis playing career to be able to hang in a place where there was no war.
Yeah.
And then you also had, you had the Cold War going on too. East Germany and all of that was very high in 1984.
Right. So that was about, college time was pretty much, your peak of I guess, performance, right?
Yes.
Were there any notable wins or things you can reflect on that time? Like, so I kind of get a gauge, because I played college tennis, right? I mean, played for the ACC. I didn't, I never been humiliated or had the humility until I hit playing the ACC. I've never lost, been bageled in my life until I played in the ACC. So, looking at your stats, I just kind of want to get a gauge of where you were at, at that level.
Well, I did win JUCO Nationals in Florida in 1980, and then I went on to University of Nevada, Reno at D1. And so we played Stanford, we played Cal Berkeley, we played some of the bigger schools in Northern California, so to speak, right? I had very close losses, like I lost very, very close to Derek Rostagno, who went on to become number 12 in the world.
Wow. Okay.
And I beat Nick Brown, who went on to become like 86 in the world, and he got to the quarters at Wimbledon and beat Goran Ivanisevic.
Wow.
So I had some, high wins, but at the same time, the problem is not the wins, it's just, do you get the opportunity?
Yeah.
Does a door open for you? So our top three in our school at that time, our number two, my doubles partner actually, he beat John Letts, who played for Stanford. When we went to Stanford, our number 7 lost to Jimmy Grab, 7-6, 7-6. Okay, so, we were in par with Stanford, who was number 1 in the nation at that time, and Patrick McEnroe actually lost in the first round of the Northern Cal Collegiate Series Championship. So he lost in the first round to a guy I had beaten like 10 times. It was one of his biggest wins, but Patrick McEnroe lost in the first round. Yeah. So we were at that level, but we just didn't get an opportunity to do something after that. So my doubles partner was from Australia, and my other doubles partner, second year, was from Canada. And he was from Quebec. He was really good too. So the top three, the three of us were like, really, really high level. Any one of us could have gone on the tour, done whatever we wanted to do. Of course, the guy from Canada, he didn't really want to play after. The Australian, John, Matt Kulak, he basically said, I don't want to go back to Australia. I'm going to quit tennis and start teaching. I, of course, was from Sri Lanka, on a small island. I had no choices on saying, okay, well, I can do this and that, because I tried to coach after, but I couldn't get my visas to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to go and work in a secure, regular job where they sponsored me, to get my work permit.
Yeah.
So my whole strategy was completely had to be out of tennis, unfortunately. I just couldn't get back into coaching for quite about 4.5 to 5 years. After college, I had to completely quit tennis. I was really depressed. I threw all my memorabilia away, and I just said, okay, you know what? I tried, and I just couldn't succeed. I didn't have an angel at that time to come and say, okay, look at this kid. He's from a small island. Look at what he has done at the Division I level. Let's take him to an academy. Let him train at Harry Hopman's or something like that. In fact, Harry Hopman, when I was 17, that's now called Saddlebrook Tennis Academy in Florida. He wrote a handwritten letter to my father saying, I'll give you a 50% scholarship to my tennis academy if we can afford the other 50%. So did Dr. Alan Fox from Pepperdine. He also sent a handwritten letter to my father after he's seen some of my little results in the tournaments, saying, we'll give you a 50% scholarship. Same thing, 50% scholarship. But there's no way because we make money in rupees in Sri Lanka. So, I mean, if you
Make that
convert that,
conversion.
it's like, $1,000 a month. I mean, how can you pay 50% to Pepperdine as an international student, right?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of opportunity I could never capitalize on. So I had no choice but to leave the game at my peak.
Yeah.
It was a very, very tough time for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything crazy, but, lose myself. But I was not happy, so that was one of the driving factors for me to eventually realize that, hey, all these jobs, it's not giving me any satisfaction. I went from being a manager of retail stores to restaurants to big commercial management opportunities in the field of computers and like Staples in the U.S.
So that didn't quite fill your soul and
No,
your purpose.
no, it just wasn't cutting it. I didn't know how am I gonna get back into this tennis game, and it was through some luck again. There, after that I had, if you want to call angels helping me, because I was working. I was actually in my job at a place called Office Club in Long Beach, working, and I saw this gentleman making photocopies. And he looked very well dressed, like a tennis player would dress, right? So I just went up to him and said, "Hey, do you play tennis?" He had a T-shirt that says "Ultra Slim Fast Team, World Team Tennis." He said, "Oh yeah, I play tennis," and we had a little communication. He asked me, "Oh, so what do you do?" I mentioned a few things I'd done in college tennis and stuff. He said, "Why aren't you teaching?" I said, "Well, I was thinking about it, but I never had the opportunity to think about it." He said, "Well, I work at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center. We run it, and why don't you come and give me a lesson?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." So I went back and said, made a date. Went and bought some shoes, a shirt. He said, "Don't worry about rackets and balls. I have it." And I remembered all the drills I've done. In my past, all the coaches would drill me. And so I gave him a lesson. I said, "Hey, look, you're a natural. If you want to work here, you can." And that's how I came to work again in Long Beach at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center. I was one of the pros hired there to start working, and that's how my tennis second phase started.
Yeah. So a lot of people transition generally if they figure out I can't make it in the ATP tour.
Right.
It's usually a simple switch to a career choice of or a switch to teaching, right? Pretty
Yeah,
natural. It's pretty easy, but it was a 4 or 5 year process for you, and that's a
absolutely.
hard
Yeah,
grind.
yeah. I just didn't have the opportunity to say, okay, I can go back on the tour and see what will happen, right?
Yeah,
Um, I just couldn't do it. So I had that chip on my shoulder, if you want to call it that. Hey, you know what? I have something to prove in this game. So um, I just took that opportunity, and my career just shut off after that.
yeah. So in that process over the years, I mean, then you just kept ramping up and becoming directors of tennis and various academies, and you even made your own academy. But
Right.
in that process, you've been able to coach top level players, right?
Yes.
World ranked players.
Hmm.
So, what is the day in the life of a coach in that kind of position, and also what is the day life of a top 100, top 200 tennis player? What does it look like? What does their schedule
Yeah,
look like?
wow, that's a tough. Not a tough question. It's a long
Yeah,
question. Well, the day in the life of a professional coach, coaching those players, it's okay. There is a lot of excitement. Okay, first of all, there is excitement because you have something which can do something more than others can do.
yeah,
So that excitement comes, but then as that excitement comes, you have to understand. Okay, what can you do to enhance that player to get better, right?
yeah,
So everything boils down to weapons. So when I say weapons, I mean like if you come to a gunfight with with a stick and the other guy has a machine gun,
yeah,
I mean it's not going to be an easy battle. Okay, so when you're coming into that level of having okay, I'm a world ranked player, you're showing some form of a weapon. Now, is it a nuclear weapon you have, or is it just like a machine gun,
yeah,
right? So that is the first thing you have to observe is, what can you do to enhance a weapon? So you have to theorize does that individual have, which is you can see the roots of a weapon or it's building a weapon. So what is that? Is it his movement? Is it his mental skills? Is it his ability to stay in a point? Or is it that he has an explosive forehand or a backhand or a serve or a volley or whatever it is? What is the most explosive thing this person or things this person has? Then you have to break those down, and then you have to say, okay, what can I do? What form can I come up with for that to become special? So that becomes a unique thing where this individual has to also buy into it. So sometimes with the pros, they think they know it all, or they think hey, I'm doing great. So when you tell someone, hey, no, can we do something else? Because I want this to be better.
yeah,
It's not an easy thing because they have to buy into it, right? So that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of talking, a lot of discipline, a lot of personality traits and understanding psychology. So it actually rounds you off as a coach. You have to understand that you can be a one-dimensional coach. You have to have your fingers into nutrition, into physical conditioning, into technical. You have to be able to see things without video, and that's what was actually my gift. I can see a player walk on the court, and I can almost tell you their life story. Maybe it is a gift, but I actually worked hard trying to analyze that, right?
yeah,
But so my entire life, even if I was taking a shower, I can go through the entire series of drills the player did, and I can see everything in like three-dimensional vision in my brain, what they were wearing, even the sweat coming off there. I mean, I can see every aspect of it, and I learned how to understand how to think like that, to be able to see everything in slow motion. And I would think about it, and then something might spark, something will come up to it. I got to go and try this with them.
Do you think that's something developed over the hours and hours, or you feel like a lot of that was a God-given kind of gift?
I think that was a gift, but I had to, what can I say? I had to work on it to make it great. Meaning, yes, it is. I don't know whether. Okay, it's very. I don't know. I don't know whether anyone can just like read a book and say, okay, I know what I can do now with this person.
Yeah.
I think certain coaches, like certain players, there is a small it factor, which kind of separates that person from a generalized coaching philosophy. Whether that's part of passion, intelligence. I can't really categorize it other than to say that there was a spark or a gift for a certain thing, and then you have to work your butt off at it. And yes, it is not just like a gift comes and then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You have to work. I mean, intently. People think coaching is easy. It is not easy. Meaning, it is work. Not just the work on the court where you're standing and you're watching and you're watching and you're watching. You have to take all those things you watch and be able to analyze it. And we didn't have video and stuff those days. I mean, we were just starting this. We didn't even have cell phones properly. We had analog phones. We didn't have even pictures. We didn't have what we have today.
Yeah.
So everything had to come from here first. In a way, that was good because now, when I had the video, it's even easier. Meaning, today's time is so different from those days. So I worked very, very hard at trying to develop myself to understanding what it takes to train world-ranked players. It's something you have to understand, right? So I was like Brad Gilbert and them. I mean, they were number 8 in the world, top 10. Then they went on to a coaching career, right? So they have seen a side at a slam which I hadn't seen.
Right.
So what can I do now to try to compete against Brad Gilbert? Right? That is what I'm thinking. Okay, well, I didn't play the French Open. I don't know what it is to be in the quarterfinals of a French Open. I do know to be in a quarterfinals of a tournament. What does that feel like? I mean, I had to actually try to learn, understand. I had to read and read and read books after books after books on psychology, coaching, and all the people who said things. So I would go through analyze everything somebody has ever said, like even a Brad Gilbert or a Jimmy Connors or whoever has ever said, any coach has ever written a book. I would just go and just take certain parts of it, not the entire book, but certain parts of it, and say, that makes sense. And then develop my own skills. So it is, you just can't, okay, so I guess there's always an exception to a rule where somebody says, okay, I'm the father or the mother, I'm the uncle, I'm the brother, and I'm going to take this player on the tour. Great, meaning, I don't know, some people will call that, hey, you're riding this player's coattails, so to speak, or, because they're so good anyway. You just have to give them the bag and the tennis racket and they just go and they win. Okay, so, how much do you have to do? Like, when Roger Federer was at his peak, I was talking to a very good friend of mine. His name is Guy Fritz. He's Taylor Fritz's dad. So we are very close as friends. And he was telling me, hey, what are you going to tell Federer? He's won like 20 Grand Slams, and you're carrying his bag onto the court. What are you going to do for him? Are you going to change his forehand? What are you going to tell him, right? So at a certain level, yes, so somebody can say, I'm a coach on the ATP or WTA tour, and because my son or my daughter or whatever is, you don't have to coach them. Like they're winning already. You don't have to tell them how to hit a forehand properly. They already have a blasting forehand just as a gift. They've got it and they're working. So yeah, so a parent can take that student, whoever it is on the tour, and say, I'm a tour coach now. That's an easy thing to do. But whether you have the skill to say, okay, Here's a different type of a player. Here's a player who's ranked 1,500 in the world. What can you do with them? So now all of a sudden, that person will have to have done what I have done, meaning they'll have to really study the game again.
Yeah.
But they're not even played tennis. They could have played some club tennis or something, maybe, or perhaps none. So you have to then become a student of the game again.
Yeah.
So that part of becoming a student in coaching, even if you're a player and you will be in the top 10 in the world and you said, I'm going to coach tomorrow, you have to transfer the playing career to a coaching career. So there is a learning process even for that person.
Yeah.
They can't just say, oh, okay, I'm going to coach. They have to be able to know things and see things. So for that, you have to study the game.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of my father. So my father was really a self-taught tennis player and coach. Like he didn't have any formal instruction of tennis. Growing up, his parents, I guess his dad played a little bit of tennis. I don't think he really even played when he was younger. So, but when you're talking about the gift or what makes a good coach, I think when I analyze it back, I think his engineering, his analytical kind of, science background,
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely helped on how he took actual physics concepts and applied that to tennis. So he would be teaching me physics on how to, whether it's centripetal or how to add more acceleration or how to add speed and use physics concepts and things like that. And also
Absolutely.
what's the best way to not get injured. So I think one of the things he's proud about is most of his players never got injured for the amount of tennis we played, right?
Right.
And a lot of that was good form, and even to the point of footwork, how do you not get injured? And he was, I think, understanding the physics and applying that to tennis and just being maniacal, almost obsessive about it, I think made him a pretty damn good coach. So I think that was his gift now that I kind of think about it.
Yeah, because when you say obsessive, that is what you have to be. I don't really say that you have to be in the top 10 in the world as a tennis player. Now you're going to be a great coach.
Yeah.
I don't think it relates exactly like that, right? Nick Bollettieri, I don't know. I don't think he really even played
He
major
wasn't a
tennis
great
around.
tennis player. Yeah.
So that is the point. Like your father, he must have, with his intelligence, studied the game like you are going to get a PhD in it, even though you don't get it. You study like that.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the same philosophy the ones who really want to do it and have the passion for it, like your father, that's what we do. We actually put our life into that philosophy. And nothing moves. Everything is that. It's almost like a drug. Mm-hmm. You're not playing tennis, but it's like when you get up in the morning, that's the first thought which comes to you. What am I going to do with this player today? What can I do different? How do I help this person? And it just becomes obsessive.
Yeah.
And that's how you build a career, I think, in coaching.
And so, yeah, those are the nuggets and kind of insight I got now as coaching and, what's the difference between a great coach. But, I've realized throughout me playing tennis, there are so many levels to this game, right? It's just crazy how many levels
Boy.
to the tennis game there is. You can get, a top 100 college player and you bring him out to even these ITF tennis tournaments held on Guam. And on average, most of the players are, 300s, 500s to 300s at the most in the world. But even those top college players probably get creamed, like 1-1 on on these courts here on Guam, right? But then if you take those top 200 or even 100 and you put them against Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, they probably get crushed 1-1 or even sometimes 0-0. That's just crazy on the level of how many levels there is. So you've seen those levels,
Yeah.
right? What do you think is that difference? What's that spark or what's that difference? You know, is it the mental? Is it, I mean, I'm sure there's so many ingredients to make a number one versus a number 100 player, but, you know, what are some, I guess, key things you see is the difference? Because everyone can hit 100 plus mile hour serve.
Right.
Everyone on the tour can hit 50 miles on a forehand,
Right.
right? They have all the strokes. So what's the difference?
Gosh, at one time when I was, doing this and coming in my 30s, coming into this game, I thought that I can basically take use this example, make a donkey into a Mustang, right? I thought, oh yeah, no problem, I can do that. I can take this donkey and I can make him into a thoroughbred.
Yeah.
You think like that, but it just doesn't happen. There is something which we don't know yet. Now, I don't know, some can call it a it factor, God factor. There's something beyond what we can humanly understand which happens to certain people, and why? Absolutely no clue. I mean that's the honest truth. I mean, you can say, it's written in your hands. God blessed you more than the rest. You can use a lot of terminology, but what does that mean in science? Can we go into somebody's brain and see something different and why someone wins 22 or 23 or 20 Grand Slams and the other person right next to that person trying as hard or even harder loses, right, for somebody to win? That concept, if you try to use science to answer that question, I don't think science has come up with an answer yet, because I don't think we can dissect the brain of a person while they're playing. Now, they might say something like, I remember, I think Chrissy Everett, a long time ago, she was doing an interview and somebody asked her, so did you think you were going to win this many slams? And she said, no, I never thought I was going to win this many slams. I wanted to be a professional tennis player, is what kind of she was saying, but I didn't know. No one knows, how three players in the same decade, so to speak, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, they have 20 plus, that's like 60 slams among them,
Yeah.
and everybody else does not. What is that? Do they work that much harder than the next person? You can't really define and say that because it's not fair to the rest of the world.
Right.
Because they are really sacrificed everything they have to try to be there, right? To be number 5, number 7, number 8, number 10 in the world, to 2,000 in the world. They have sacrificed to be there. So it is not something, I don't think any coach, can actually say, here's the science behind that. This is the answer. Because if you say those words, other people should be able to do it, right? Because if it's scientifically proven,
it should be reproducible, right?
Absolutely, right. That is what science is supposed to do for us, right? Science is a factual thing, and you come up with this thing and you win a Nobel Peace Prize for it. People then use it, like Einstein, coming up with a theory, and it becomes a reality, and people are using it to do things. That's the problem. I don't think we can do that. We have to just give it to God, let it happen. I don't know. They're from another planet. They're not human. You hear those kind of terms. Oh, that guy is not human. Or that girl is not human. They're not. They're different. What do you mean by they're different? They were just born like we were born.
Yeah.
We same blood. Same DNA, meaning human DNA. I don't know whether some angel touches you. It's a concept now. I understand that you can't fight. You can't fight it, meaning like, I have this player, I'm going to take this player, and they're going to win 20 slams. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to just look at it as a journey. A journey of a person, an individual. Whatever happens at the end of the journey is what has happened. And there are no answers for it.
Yeah.
There is absolutely, it stumps everybody to give a scientific answer to why somebody wins 22 slams. You can talk about it all day and say, oh, this person doesn't get hurt or comes back after injury and wins again. Or they work so much harder than everybody else. Their work ethic is at a level of, you can't even mention the level because it's so much compared to the number 8 or 9 player in the world. I really don't think so. I think they all work really, really hard, maybe even harder than the ones who are winning. But something gives them that extra edge.
Yeah. Like if you were to put up maybe even a percentage, right, between the Djokovic versus the top 10 player, right, is how much would you attribute it to the mental side, the mental toughness?
Of course, the mental toughness at that level is something there again. I don't know whether science can probe that, but we have to give them that credit, right? We have to say, okay, for some reason, they are mentally stronger than everybody else. That's what shows up, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what is that? What does that mean? What do they have more chemical, some kind of a chemical in their brain with more than the rest of the people to stay, whatever you want to call it, calm, emotionless, stable.
The zone.
They call it the zone.
Right.
Staying in the zone. Okay, so what is that? That's what I like science to give us the answers to, if possible, is that what is that it factor we say, and we just say the words, oh, they are just mentally, brutally stronger than the other person. They have to be, right? They have to. So then you keep going in that concept and you end up like, okay, so they're like this perfect person? They have more of a perfect gene than the rest of the world? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. We give them the credit for being mental giants, if you want to call that, a mental deity. What is that? There has to be a reason behind that, right? Science has to someday say, okay, yep, this person we check the DNA, and this person has this chemical 20% more than the rest of the world. Then at least we can say, now we know why they were so mentally that strong.
Yeah.
Don't know. Carlos in the finals against Djokovic, right, at Wimbledon. Everybody's talking about it. They're like, man, he just destroyed this guy. Now, does that mean that maybe Djokovic, so now, does that mean that he's a human being? Meaning he's not perfect now? He lost, right, in straight sets. So what? Is that just on that day Djokovic was not mentally prepared to play Carlos? Hey, he's already won. He's the GOAT. He has the most amount of Grand Slams ever in the history of the world. What happened? I don't know.
I'm surprised he could keep it up that
long, right?
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
He's in the finals, right? He's in the finals, but that is something, we can just say words.
Yeah.
We just say words.
Yeah.
Oh, Carlos played out of his mind. Oh my God, that guy he's an animal. He's this, he's that. He just, he's brutal. Do you see how he, handled this point, that point against Djokovic? Don't ask me how that's done.
Yeah.
That's...
So along the lines of, I guess since we're still on the topic of almost metaphysical or even maybe spiritual, or
yes,
science quite can't understand it. I kind of wanted to go into intuition, or you recently just got to see my son play
Yes.
just recently, and you gave him some great tips on his tennis. And do you have an intuition, or do you kind of know, just looking at a junior, that this guy has the potential to be an elite player?
Yes, in a way, that is a true statement. Meaning, I saw a video of Pete Sampras a long time ago. This was just with like four other players. They had made a video, a private video, and it was on some documentary. And they were all just doing the same drill, like, hit two forehands, come to the net, hit some volleys and a smash. And I watched them all do it, and they were talking about Pete Sampras, of course. He was, I think, maybe 13. You could hear a noise, which no one else was. The noise when he touched the ball was different from the noise. Everyone, all the other students, don't know who they were. I mean, they were small. I don't remember. But the noise was completely different. The footwork was completely different. There was something he had, which the other kids on the court didn't have. So yes, so you can look at a junior athlete, a person, and say, oh wow, it is a contact point. So they have a contact. So you call it hand-eye coordination, right? I mean, if you want to put words, when their racket touches the ball, it doesn't mean that it's going to the place it's supposed to go. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just the touch. When the racket touches the ball, it touches so clean. You can't explain it. So when somebody sees that, and if you can see it, like if you watch 10 kids and you see one of them, because you have trained your eye, so to speak, right, to look at certain differences, you can see, yes, you can say this person should definitely be playing tennis. So that, yes, in the way of the cleanness of how they touch the ball on their racket will let you know that they have a gift beyond normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your son, I mean, he definitely has potential, a lot of potential. You can see the physical aspect of your son coming along. His hand-eye coordination is very high. It's very, very high. He has a good perception of how to make contact, and he can, even at his age, he can visually see. So remember, he has a good visual sense. So you can make him watch videos, slow motion videos of solid forehands. It's so easy now on Google and YouTube to find these things, and just let him watch. So I think he'll be what we call a visual learner.
Okay.
Show him and he will do it. You don't have to teach him too much. So yeah, I mean, you can see that. So yes, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter the age. Something special, you can see.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't want to get also too much into the, almost uncontrollable, because this channel is also about empowerment, right? Like,
Right.
what can you do on a daily basis? What are the habits you can do? What can be done to improve your health, your mind? So, I think it's also bringing it back to that, sometimes maybe didn't give you the genetics to be a 7-foot, basketball player, right? But I think there's still a lot of things that you can do to maximize your potential and even still be a great player and make a lot of break records or whatever you wanted to do with the sport. So, and I think even the sport of tennis, I think they're still behind in a lot of the potential things that could have been done medically, on the sports training side.
Of course.
Like, especially on the mental side, like using neurology and different eye techniques, and that's kind of starting to come along. And
Absolutely.
but they've been already using that in like soccer and
Yes.
doing video, like special eye coordination exercises, like Stephen Curry, and those they use special programs to train their mind and their eyes, right? And
Yes.
tennis is, I feel like, just starting that, a little bit behind.
Yeah, it's a little bit behind. You are
Yeah.
right, but like in Palos Verdes, there is a doctor. Actually, Billie Jean King endorses him. He has special machines, which you can go and he does special tests,
Yeah.
and actually enhances your vision, right? So even if you go to the USDA website or ITF website, you can find eye exercise things you can do to build your eyes, so to speak, your muscles in your eyes. So those things are there. It's just that that's the problem. Like I said, I think it comes to coaching. Coaches cannot just be, let's do a little bit of physical work, let's technically correct you, and then send you home. They have to be more 3 or 4 dimensional in their approach to the game. I think that's where tennis has lacked. So we take a player who's really world class, you don't need to do much with, and think, I've done my job, right? That's easy. But to basically say, how do I develop? Then you have to learn all these things you talked about, soccer having and everything. We do have it in tennis. That's the first thing I do when I see a player. I say, buy this book called Enter the Zone by Dr. Barry Sears. He put the whole Stanford team on a special diet for tennis. You got to read that book. Dr. Chu's Plyometrics, you got to read that. So you have to give things outside of your normal standard tennis lesson. Beetroot powder just for nitric oxide. I mean, science is coming along. Are the coaches coming along?
Yeah.
I mean that's the problem with tennis, that they are so, what do you want to call it, tunnel vision. They're almost like one dimensional, and you can't do that anymore. Every coach has to say, okay, yep, go back and learn what nutrition means. What does that word mean? What's a good carb? What's a bad carb? I mean, study what the human body needs. First, how do you prevent injury? I mean, just a little trampoline alone for your ankles. I mean, I think there's a coach, I forget his name, but he was a gymnastic coach, I think at University, was it Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken, who wrote a book on how to prevent ankle injuries by just bouncing on a trampoline. So investigate into that. Ankle injuries, I mean, a lot of players are always, I slid wrong, whatever. You have to go into other sports and see what the science is happening in those sports, and then incorporate some of that into your routine. Injury prevention is now, I mean, I was watching, I think it was Djokovic's conditioning coach on a YouTube video, and he was teaching on how to train somebody in, physically. His whole 30-minute thing, and I'm just watching, is injury prevention exercises. It's like rehab exercises. I mean, that's what he was saying. He was not even doing fast twitch or anything. He was like, oh, so do that thing? Yeah, well, that'll prevent this injury. That'll prevent that injury. So right now, I've been saying this for the last 4 years. I see a change in conditioning, which will come to where rehab exercises become more dominant in the start of a player than anything else. Because the game has come to a point of such explosion, and so many doing it at a very high level than even when I was playing. I mean, when we were playing, we didn't have the depth and the things was happening in today's game. So every match is brutal. So now you have to actually relearn again. So I believe that eventually it will become a rehab sport. A conditioner will be rehab oriented. Then, of course, fast twitch muscle work, which you have to have tremendously. But like you said, the hand-eye, the vision. I mean, the balls are moving faster and faster. So, I mean, it's common sense to say, hey, you know what? You got to work on your eyes. So those eye exercises, which I've seen from 1991 on the USDA website, we had 3 distinctive eye exercises to do. I mean, it becomes more imperative now because the balls are moving 30 miles faster than it was before, probably, or more, on a regular rally. So, of course, you have to train things which you may have not thought about in the past as much.
Yeah.
So the entire thing is going to change into what I consider rehab.
Yeah. So going back to, the day in the life of a professional, I kind of want to get an idea, or just especially for the Guam tennis players that maybe hopefully want to get to that level, and understanding the sacrifice and commitment. What does a typical schedule or weekly schedule or daily schedule look like when you were training these, world-class athletes?
Well, time. So time management and time. Time is everything. You have to put in the time. And the problem is with the demand and the vigor of education, which is getting also very hard to do, and more people are applying for certain universities, and it's not easy to get in academically. It puts a strong toll on an athlete now. So it's you have to somehow be disciplined to put in at least 15 hours a week just into tennis now. That's not
including the exercises, the
that's
conditioning.
That's not including mental, physical, nutrition.
Yeah,
That's not including any of those other things.
Yeah.
This is just repetition, explosive repetition, at least 15 hours. Now, if you go to the ITF website, they will actually give you, if you just search engine on ITF website on how many hours should a junior athlete, they have done research on this. So this research is on Google on how many hours has a pro player played, how many hours has a top 100 player played. They actually break it very well down. And they even say, okay, well, you don't have to put 15 hours. If your talent level is so high, you can do 10. So they have researched this concept, and it's only going to get harder. So for the Guam athletes, I say, you have to go. Education is number one. There's no question about that. It has to be there. Because, you can throw all the marbles in there and say, I'm going to go on the pro tour or not. Now, I tell a lot of American kids and parents this long time ago. You're American. You have a U.S. passport. Okay, so you can go to a junior college for almost free. You can go to a state school, a little bit more with FAFSA and financial aid. You can get a degree and then go on to graduate school from age 20 to 80 years old. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have that privilege of doing that. A foreign player does not. So can you say risk some education time and say I'm going to homeschool, I'm going to do an alternative type of education and say I'm going to give this a major crack, because if I don't succeed at 22 doesn't mean that I can't do nothing else. It means that if you're an American, you can always go back to your junior college and get your education and get a PhD in whatever you want to do. You can even spend 10 years in a junior college if you feel you're not adequate enough because you sacrificed education. Nothing stops you. You can get a GED, you can study. So if you're an American, you have a lot of advantages not to actually say, no, I'm going to go normal education and play an hour and a half 3 times a week because that's all I can do for time management wise. So that's the problem on Guam, or actually on technically any country. But I tell even the Guam people, but it's very hard to tell parents, hey, sacrifice education so that you can be a better tennis player. So what does that mean, Kishan? Are they going to be top 10 in the world? No, I don't know. It's just the opportunity. So you have to look at it as an opportunity to want to be the best you can be in tennis, and then regress back to your education, or you're trying to do both. You're trying to juggle it, and you're on a small island. There's no national tournaments. There's no national program in the way of 10 tournaments, and then there's a national championship at the end of the year.
Yeah.
There's no pathway other than the ITFs and the NPRC and the POJCs, the juniors play. So there's a lack of match play on the island. And then the excuse is, well, we only have 10 players. Well, I mean, the 10 can play 1,000 times. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can play if you want, but that doesn't happen either sometimes. So it's going to be stagnant until some parents say, okay, you know what? I don't mind that route. I can do homeschooling route. I can do something different, and then spend as much time to give the individual more chances of even getting a college scholarship. Yeah. Because everything is getting harder and harder and harder. It's not getting easier to play college tennis. It's actually brutal. But Guam being a U.S. base, where if you're born here, you get you're a U.S. citizen, so to speak, has an advantage over Fiji or Tahiti or any other island, which you don't get a passport, U.S. passport.
Yeah. Speaking of which, actually, you've helped in my, I guess, coaching. I've helped train some of the students to be able to play some Division 1 or Division 3, but without scholarship. But you were actually just in your short time here, you've been able to place a few students, or at least get them some offers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was. I guess that is because of me knowing so many coaches. I mean, of course, I'm from California, and I put so many kids into different schools that I kind of know the system.
Yeah.
So when I put my resume in with the player and I vouch for them, it does help, of course. So I'm able to do that. Yes, I'm able to do that. I mean, when I went to Sri Lanka in January, one of our top players, former top players, said, "Hey, can you help some of these kids?" And I got 2 of them scholarships, and I only trained them for like 4 or 5 days. So. Yeah, I've been able to help them, and I want to help the Guam juniors get to college because that is the pathway which is there for them right now. There is no 5 days a week, 5 hours a day academy set up in Guam. So it's not easy to say, okay, well, we can look at a professional career, so to speak, and say, yes, we'll sacrifice education because, IMG is here. If you want to, I want to use that term. Oh, we have this Nadal type academy on the island, so we are going to take that shot. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So yes, getting to college is. And you have so mmany pathways. So, for example, you have your junior college pathway, you have your NAIA pathway, then you have your D3, D2, and D1, right? So the pathway to getting to a D1 level, you don't lose it just because you go to a JUCO. You can hone your skills. So any JUCO or any place will play 50 matches minimum in a semester. 25 singles and 25 doubles matches. I think it's actually more than that if you look at the scrimmages and everything, which is not recorded. So that is what's lacking. So, yeah, I've been able to help, and I'm happy that I've been able to help, the players who are graduating, like Aman, Dakota, Johnny Jackson, Jacob G. Armley. I've been able to help these players. Aiden, too. I actually got Aiden Shambari a scholarship, which he didn't take because he got into Baylor and he wants to go into aeronautics. Yeah. So he decided just say, okay, coach, thank you, but, I'm going to Baylor for different reasons. So I have been blessed to be able to help these players. And I hope they continue and they, keep Guam tennis alive in that manner. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully they still keep training
Yeah.
and represent us. Or we got to get some Delta juniors real quick. But yeah, I think something, yeah, I want to reemphasize for as a parent, right? Um, yeah, maybe I'm starting to open up, and maybe as parents, you should really also consider the JCO road,
Yeah.
because that's I think underestimated. Because I'm my kids are 8 and 9 and 5 now, right? So I don't know how, even at my salary, I'm gonna start saving up to be able to fund a $50,000, $40,000 a year
Yes.
tuition.
Yes.
It's crazy,
Yeah, it's
right?
crazy.
So you know, so I think even the JOCO route is I think a very reasonable, because in the end, and if you get to play tennis, you get the experience, and then hopefully that will give you the scouting opportunity to get recruited for D1 if tennis is important. But even if it's not tennis, I mean, for the education wise, you still get the degree of the final college, right? So,
Absolutely. That's what counts, right? I
right,
mean, you
right,
don't you go to JUCO, but you can end up at Berkeley graduating, right?
exactly. So
So
I think that's an underestimated route. Sometimes maybe people think too prideful, like they just want to go there and that's it. But there are other routes. I mean, I would rather save $80,000.
the first 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think that's something to consider, whether you have tennis or not, or any other sports. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, you can bash JUCO tennis because Tyler. The number one at Tyler is like a UTR 13. JUCO tennis is very strong, and most coaches in JUCOs, when you say, okay, come play for me, they tell you, I'll help you get something after the 2 years. I'll talk to the coaches. You give me some results. I'll talk to the coaches to get you out of the JUCO and into the Division 2, 3, 1 or whatever.
yeah,
So or NAIA, that system is still a very powerful system for Guam to capitalize on.
yeah, yeah. It's uh, kind of. I still have some years left, but it's a mental battle. I'm thinking, for my kids, what do I do? Do I throw my chips in, invest in the tennis, and hopefully they get a tennis scholarship, which is still hard,
Right.
still hard, or do I give them enough tutoring so they can get some academic scholarships, or I got to put in another 30, 40 hours, work overtime myself so I could, save up for college tuition. I got to think of these routes, just to afford higher education now in the US. And I'm even looking at other countries like Japan and other countries that have a lot more reasonable tuition, right?
Right.
So these are the things I'm thinking about at my age with my kids. And yeah, it's a lot to think about. And yeah, it's totally different from back then, 20, 30 years where, yeah, I mean, out of all the industries, I think college has the biggest inflation rate out of any industry, like
Absolutely.
500% or
Yeah.
something crazy. So yeah, things to think about. So, but I think even for Guam, and we've proven it, right? You've proven it that tennis or some of the other sports could be a route to pay for expensive college tuition. But also, I want to let the parents know or the kids realize it is like a part-time job, right? It's a big commitment.
Yes, it is. It
Yeah,
is a big commitment. There is
yeah,
no question. The commitment has to be there from the athlete,
yeah.
but you have to have some sort of an academy type environment.
Hmm.
When I say academy, I mean the whole dimensions of the academy, not just I'm coming to train. Like we discussed before, the nutrition, the mental, the physical, the technical. Uh, you have to have a base somewhere. So if you don't have the base, then you have to go where the base is. So a lot of players might have to travel to another country where they get a scholarship to go to a tennis academy and train. That's how I forget her name, but the Philippine girl who won the U.S. Open Juniors. The parents and all the relatives got together and put a bunch of money, and she went to Nadal Academy. That's where she trained. She didn't train in the Philippines.
Yeah,
So sometimes you have to perhaps make a commitment somewhere else to an academy and get the training even if it's in the summers. you have to be able to have the money too, right there again. And that's not free unless you get a scholarship to an academy and they'd say, okay, we'll give you a scholarship. You have to have the money. So the money factor is it's really high even at age 10, 11, 12, 13 to do it. So that's why my philosophy for Guam is an academy first, everything else last. That would be my concept if I was here running. If I was the person running things, I would, yes, build the coach. You need coach to have an academy, but after that, it's nothing but an academy, and then everything else which comes, tournaments. But without the base of a real program, it's going to be really hard for the players who can't leave the island become special. I mean, it's just too much.
Yeah. But I think Guam still has that potential, and we have the now infrastructure. We have all
Yeah.
these courts, the nicest courts probably in
Oh
Oceania
yes,
now,
yes,
right?
yes, of course.
And just building the infrastructure around it, dormitories, the right coach.
Absolutely.
But it can come. I think it's very possible. So
Oh, 100%. I feel that hopefully it's going that direction. I mean, you have 11 courts now, right? And you've got a beautiful facility. So those are the next steps. Like you said, the dormitory facilities, bringing other players so that your players have a chance to practice against other players we normally won't be able to do.
yeah.
Once slowly that engine starts that way, I think Guam will have a great shot at it.
Yeah. So I want to bring this back to health and wellness. So, what are the benefits of any studies or anything in terms of tennis and health, and whether it's or health, financial, social, spiritual? What are some of the benefits to tennis?
Oh my goodness! I mean, if you Google that, so many things come up now because actually science has, in that manner, science has actually done some science, meaning they've done some research on this situation.
Yeah.
So if you go on the USDA website, I mean, there's an article which is like 34, 35 reasons on why you should play tennis. I mean, I can just tell you a few things really
Sure.
quick. Dr. Jack Groppel, PhD. This is his article. He says that everybody says tennis is a sport for a lifetime. Is that really true? So here's a quick research on what scientists have done. It says people who participate in tennis 3 hours per week, moderate intensity, doesn't have to be vigorous, cut their risk of death in half from any cause, according to physicians Ralph Paffenberger, who studied over 10,000 people over a period of 20 years.
Wow.
Next statement. Tennis players scored higher in vigor, optimism, and self-esteem, while scoring lower in depression, anger, confusion, anxiety, and tension than other athletes and non-athletes. According to Dr. Joanne Finn and colleagues at Southern Connecticut State University. Here's another one. Since tennis requires alertness and tactical thinking, it may generate new connections between nerves in the brain and thus promote a lifetime of continuing development of the brain, reported scientists at the University of Illinois. And here's another big one. Tennis outperforms golf. Inline skating and most other sports in developing positive personality characteristics, according to Dr. Jim Gavin, author of The Exercise Habit. And here's another one. Competitive tennis burns more calories than aerobics. Inline skating or cycling, according to studies on caloric expenditures. So then it goes into things like aerobic fitness, anaerobic fitness, ability to accelerate, powerful first step, speed, leg strength, general body condition, gross motor control, fine motor control, agility, dynamic balance, cross training, bone strength and density, immune system, nutritional habits, eye hand coordination, flexibility. Also, it helps develop a work ethic, develop discipline, manage mistakes, learn to compete one on one, accept responsibilities, manage adversity. Now, and there's actually more, but this whole thing you can find on the USDA website. So they have done science and research about tennis, and I mean, this is a sport which when you're very young, like when you ride a bicycle, they say that NASA did a study that a small child who rides a bicycle, the neurons connect faster in the brain because they're doing a certain type of activity. Tennis, just getting on the court, even if you're 6, 7 years old, and doesn't matter what you're doing with the racket, whether the ball hits the racket or not, the neurons which generate is much greater than anything else. So tennis has proven that the sport in itself helps the brain. And it's amazing. So a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people don't realize the benefits of just recreational tennis.
Yeah.
It is intense. These are people who have done the science behind why play the game, right? It's unbelievable. Because you're one-on-one. First of all, there's no one. Now there is some coaching in professional tennis, but even in the juniors, you really can't coach, right, when they're playing tennis. So you have to understand and figure out puzzles for yourself.
Yeah.
There is nobody helping you. That's one of the biggest things they always say, right? All these team sports, you have a coach, you take a time out, you yell at a player, or you give them encouragement or whatever, and then send them back in. Tennis does not have that luxury.
Yeah. If you're on the court by yourself, singles, you got to figure out all the weaknesses, and they also have to dig in.
Absolutely.
Mentally.
Yes. So it obviously, makes your brain work intelligently far more than maybe, team sports. Maybe team sports are also very, very powerful and dynamic.
Yeah.
But all this research is actually proving that tennis is the sport for a lifetime. It's not golf.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, golf is number one. But tennis is number one from all sports, and that's table tennis, badminton. You have squash, you have racquetball, pickleball, all these different sports which have come along. But nothing yet has scientifically proven that you can beat tennis.
Yeah. I want to look into that decrease in all-cause mortality. That's pretty powerful, that if that study was really done right, because there's no medication, whether it's like, cholesterol medication or diabetes medication that can stack up against that kind of stat, right?
Right.
And then there's probably some kind of bias in ways where there's generally a certain type of maybe more affluent people that maybe play tennis, and that changes the shift overall health. But but 50%, that's a pretty crazy stat.
That's a crazy stat. And it was 10,000 people in a 20-year. It was a 20-year study.
Yeah.
So
it's a decent study.
It's a decent study. So it's tennis is fantastic. That's why if you look at most countries, even if you're in a third world country or a first world country, there's some place where somebody's playing tennis.
Yeah.
There is a tennis court somewhere, and there are people playing. So it's I think tennis is the third or the fourth biggest sport in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think soccer is number one, and one of my passion sport, cricket, is I think number two. And tennis is way up there in the top 5 or whatever of sports played in the world.
Yeah.
So tennis is very powerful.
Yeah. So the last question I had is a little bit of a selfish one.
No problem.
So
give it to me.
So my, I don't know if it's a chip on my shoulder or just something I just feel I still got accomplished because I never, I felt like in the juniors I was probably good enough to get some sort of world ranking if I stayed on and played all the ITFs, and if my dad didn't prioritize education too much.
Yes. Yes.
But I never got a world ranking. I had some notable wins, especially in the States, and I beat some top ranked players like a top 20 in the Australia, number one in Singapore, so a few countries, right? But so I still have this desire to someday have a ranking, maybe in the Masters.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what do you think, and maybe kind of break down my mindset, or maybe the way of thinking, maybe I got to restructure, right? The way I'm thinking right now is if I train about 2 times a week seriously and put a little more conditioning in, I could probably get close to a low D3, like a Midwest to East Coast D3 maybe, right? At least skill-wise, how hard I can hit. I don't know about my cardio right now, but skill-wise, I think I can, probably get close to there. And if I can maintain that, and with the help of the physical therapist in my clinic, I'm probably going to start spending a lot more money in my wellness, doing stem cell injections and doing a lot of functional labs, just making sure my nutrition is optimized, all my micronutrients are topped off, clear any infections, things like that, and just optimize my health with all the knowledge I'm having. But so I just feel, I'm right now at my age, 45, there's a lot of people that can just kick my ass right now. So many right now. But I'm thinking like this curve where if I'm hitting the 50s to 60s, if I
Right.
can maintain my knees, my explosivity
Right,
with
yes,
science, with physical therapy and all these other modalities, and skill-wise, if I can keep it close to D3 and maintain there, that intersection will come where maybe I can compete, where, I can get ranked,
100% you can do that. Now, I'll give you a few examples.
Yeah.
There is a Sri Lankan player, actually. His name is Ravi Subramaniam. He was not the best player in Sri Lanka by any means at that time when I was playing in the juniors. But he's ranked in the top 200 in the world in 60 and over in the ITF world rankings, right? That is fantastic. Meaning that you don't necessarily have to have been a world beater to say I want to play Masters tournaments. So that's not even a realistic statement. Okay, if you have played some tennis in the past, you can play senior tournaments. So yes, what you mentioned though was the key. I mean, if you ask me what did it take, should I play in the Masters? What I tell you is that what you mentioned in the words of injury prevention, nutrition with your physical and rehab center, that will be more of a key for you than actually playing tennis. You don't need to actually even play tennis. Believe me, okay, look, the Masters and that type of a tennis is not that you want to explode out and hit every ball as hard as you can. I mean, it's more crafty sometimes. They do more drop shots and they lob you and they do certain things to try to physically break you down rather than hit the ball through you.
Yeah.
So I don't think tennis-wise you're going to have an issue at all. I think tennis-wise, I've seen you play. You're going to be fine in the match. Actually, you have a very high world ranking. But the problem is going to be whether you can keep physically playing. So like if you ask me, hey, I'm 62 now. I'll be 62 this December. Why don't you play some tennis, Kishan? Why don't you go and, play some tournaments? I'll tell you that, if you want to carry me, stretcher out with back surgery, knee surgeries in 3 months, I can play. So some people, if they have the gift physically to have maintained it till they're 50 and know how to keep the comment injury prevention as the key factor and the nutrition part, you're going to enjoy tennis at the Masters level. You should do it. I would encourage you to do it because you already have that system which other people don't have. I mean, you have a rehab center. I mean, you know what happens in rehab. You're a doctor. You know everything about what happened to this person. How did they get hurt? Why did they get hurt? How did what happened before you got hurt? I mean, what were you doing, before you got to that place where you got hurt? You know everything. You know how to prevent. So you have an advantage over most of the people who are playing on the Masters. They don't have what you have in that manner. They are just winging it, or they are reading, Googling, doing things, talking to doctors. But you have the science behind you. You can take a blood test and know everything about what you need to know about your body. So with that in mind, tennis is going to not be the issue. You don't even need to really hit explosive like at D2, D3 levels, meaning learn the craft the game more, save your energy more, okay, and just play the court. In other words, play the sides of the court rather than the explosiveness. That's simple for you to be able to accomplish. You're gonna go really high at the Masters level. I mean, we have a Masters tournament here on Guam. I mean, a ITF World Ranking Masters tournament. I mean, I know Jeff Bristol, one of your players. He played not just this one. He went to Japan and played one too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's getting very popular to where people are starting to do that. But if you physicalness is everything. If your body is already broken down, then I say don't do it, because I've seen so many people try to play tournaments and end up in surgeries, which are, lifelong problems. So I say just have some fun, leisure tennis. Don't try too hard. Just go and get your exercise in because it's a passion. You love the game. So play a few leagues if you want. Play doubles most of the time. Don't play singles. Doubles is fantastic. It gives you almost everything you need. So be able to walk when you're 75 if you get there. I mean, that would be, that's the first step. So when people say, if I pay you, will you play me a set? I'll pay you $200 right now. Play me a set. I'm only a 3.0. I'll tell you, no. Show me your harder serve, Kishan. You used to say, talk about bragging, serving 131. Show me one of those serves. I tell them no. They say, why? You're a coach. I said, no, it's not the point. I mean, I'm not going to do that because I have actually a player who became a director of tennis at a country club in the U.S. in California. His name is Brian Gill. And he did the same thing. But he actually, when I was training him in the juniors, he went to the LA Open and he served, I think, 145.
Yeah.
And he won like 3 pairs of K-Swiss shoes. It was a little contest and he won that contest. So he had a big serve. So he was now a director of tennis. He's coaching, and some member, giving a lesson said, hey, show me your harder serve. So, he's a big guy too, like 6'3", well built. One serve, rotator cuff gone. Surgery, has never coached again. He can't even, he quit coaching after his surgery. He went into a different field of work, and he can't lift his arm anymore properly. So he really destroyed his shoulder.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you have to be ready, and you can't have an ego. You have to understand that you can't do the things you used to do. So the physical aspect of you, Doc, if you can handle that part, tennis is going to be easy for you.
Okay, that's encouraging. Did you play tennis with your pops? Did your pops?
Actually, just only one time. He was a cricketer. He
Okay.
played, for our country. He was. I mean, I come from a huge line of cricket players, and I actually played cricket. I mean, tennis was my last sport, so I actually played table tennis. I was a captain of the table tennis team. I was swimming, and also I was captaining and playing cricket at one of the most prestigious clubs in Sri Lanka called SSC, where I actually took Guam players when I went to the Fed Cup and BJ Cup, the junior
Yeah.
tournament in February. I took them to that club and I, showed them around that very famous club. They also have tennis there. And so I came into tennis when I was like 13. I had not even touched a racket before that.
13.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I was playing cricket and just accidentally grabbed a racket. My brother was playing one time, and some guy was serving. I said, "Can I just?" And I don't know. I just hit the ball, and he served, and I just swung, and the ball
That's
went over the
crazy.
net like like bam.
So you're not even from really a tennis family, and
No,
that's
it's
crazy.
I'm from a cricket family.
Wow.
And so tennis just then I liked it. When that ball went off my racket, there was something happened to me.
Yeah.
I quit all other sports like a week after that,
Yeah.
and I took up tennis.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. Besides maybe becoming world ranked in the Masters, I think one other thing I hope, this is a little more out of the control of me, but recently LeBron James is playing with his son and for the Lakers, right? And I think one of my best memories was playing tournaments and winning with my dad in doubles.
Yes, like the father-son
So,
tournaments and
father-son
stuff.
tournament.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even father, it was open, a
Oh
men's
wow.
open.
Okay.
So we were pretty competitive. So I was probably like 12, 13, and I was, getting up there. My dad was still able to play doubles at that time. So I think, I don't know how far we went. I mean, pretty sure at least semifinals, maybe one. But yeah, I'd love to hopefully maybe recreate that kind of feeling with my son on like on a men's open tournament. But we'll see. I don't know if he'll be interested in tennis.
Yeah,
Or if
that's
he'll
the
be
key.
in,
Isn't that? I mean,
in basketball
yeah, it's too
or
many.
chess. I don't know. But well, hopefully it works out that way. Yeah, but and what it would be even cooler is if I'm on the Masters and he's playing ITF tournaments. I mean, they don't correlate usually, but that'd be pretty cool if we traveled
That
together.
is so cool. I mean, those are the opportunities I think you'll have, as long as your children want it,
Yeah.
right? Want to play tennis. I mean, and not play these other sports. And that's one of our problems is that a lot of people love team sports, right? I mean that becomes like baseball, soccer, basketball, all volleyball, all these team sports. There is more camaraderie around you, and so it's very hard to get these juniors to actually enjoy tennis, right? It's not easy, but if you can get them to play tennis, I'm telling you, I mean, it's a lifelong thing, lifelong sport. It is awesome, and you'll have a tremendous amount of satisfaction.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the same thing with my kids. I didn't force them, but they played tennis, and two of them played college tennis. So I also had that privilege of actually hitting with them, right? I mean, I used to hit with them. Earlier in my 40s, I used to still go out there and I would hit balls with them, and actually up to maybe 48, I was hitting with them. It's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, those are the memories you will remember and you will have and you'll appreciate when you get older. That's for sure. So I'm wishing you all the best in being able to accomplish that, and your children wanting to play tennis. And it's in your blood anyway. It was in your father's blood. It's in your blood. It's going to be in your children's blood. I mean, just try to focus them towards tennis and not those team sports.
Yeah. Well, this is an enjoyable conversation, and I'm a little more encouraged and hopeful that maybe I can meet my goals, and I got some good advice, and I think the audience got to get some good advice on the benefits of tennis and, maybe what it takes to become an elite athlete, or if not, just getting the health benefits out of tennis. So thank you. It was a pleasure having you here, and
Absolutely,
thanks
Rod.
for coming
Thank
out
you.
this way.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.